This is Our Voice 360 podcast, our perspectives, our way. Hey, I'm your host, Chad Bumgarner, and Our Voice 360 is a podcast from our perspective, providing inspiration, business and leadership tips, Black history knowledge, sports, current news events, and self-help insight, along with other information to keep you in the know while you're on the go. Today, we'll kick off the show with a little motivation and inspiration from none other than Mike Brown. Right after that, we'll get some great business and leadership tips and insight from the leadership coach himself, me, Chad Bumgarner. Then we'll switch gears a bit and get educated on who we are when Mike Brown comes back to us with some Black history pearls of knowledge of self. Next up, we'll get our sports commentary and updates with our sports guru, Pete Hunt. Following Pete will be the brilliant and talented news reporter, Fentress Chestnut Fountain, with our current news events information. And rounding out the show will be our main man, Ivan Hunt, with his very own segment, Keep It Moving, showing us how to overcome any obstacles we face in order to gain success in life. Okay, are you ready? Let's go!
Hello everyone, welcome back to Our Voice 360. It's your man, Mike Brown. Listen, something I think that nobody really thinks about a lot of the time is that your attitude is just as important as your ability. Let me say that again. Your attitude is just as important as your ability on your road to success. Think about it. Your attitude can depict whether you get that promotion you wanted, whether you get chosen to do this, chosen to do that. Nobody wants to work up under someone with a bad attitude. We've all had that supervisor or that boss with that nasty attitude that we could not stand. You don't want that to be you. Because you can have the best ability to do this, to do that, but because of your attitude, it hinders you if it's not a good attitude. So always remember that. And I want y'all to think about that this week. How is my attitude affecting my progress in life? Thank y'all for listening once again. Our Voice 360. It's your man, Mike Brown. Y'all have a blessed week.
You're listening to the Our Voice 360 podcast, our perspectives from our way, keeping you in the know while you're on the go. Hey everyone, this is Chad Bumgarner, and welcome to another edition of The Intentional Leader. Today we're going to be discussing how you can potentially save millions of dollars during a leadership transition. And if not millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands. It just really depends on the size of your corporation and the revenue, okay? All right, so let's dive right in. When you add a new executive to the team, a failure can be catastrophic, right? However, focus on these 5 things and you're more than likely to maximize their likelihood of success. Now, leadership transitions are tough to execute. Typically, you're managing the fallout from a previous leader's unsuccessful attempt to generate the desired result. So fear and uncertainty and doubt can ripple through the organization, and you'll hear murmurs like, is my job safe? Is the company in financial distress? Is our product or service offering failing in the market? What's going to happen to the business? And most importantly, everyone wants to know, who's the boss and will they be successful? Now, in the book, Leading Organizations, 10 Timeless Truths, McKinsey, a research company, has 2 senior partners, and they go by the names of Scott Keller and Meany, M-E-A-N-Y. And so the both of them took an in-depth look at the reasons why leadership transitions fail. And what they found is that by focusing with the new executive on 5 key performance areas, new leaders can significantly reduce their likelihood of failure. Leadership transitions have a massive financial impact on the business, and the incentive to get it right is clear. Now, according to Corporate Executive Board, if the leadership transition is successful, there's a 90% likelihood that the team will go on to meet their 3-year goals and a 13% lower attrition rate among employees. However, on the other hand, unsuccessful transitions lead to 20% lower employee engagement and 15% lower team performance. Numbers do not lie, folks. Pay attention. So, the Keller and Meany report states that 75% of new executives feel unprepared for their new role. And the biggest reason? Organizations take a hands-off approach to the onboarding process for the new executive, therefore treating it as a one-off event and not creating a structured process for evaluating progress and results. So don't make this mistake with your next critical leadership transition. Instead, work through this simple but effective transition plan with your newly minted senior leader. And here are the tips. Number 1, the business. Ask yourself this: does your new hire truly understand the business and its current performance, strengths, and weaknesses? Have they taken quick action to mobilize their team towards future aspirations and priorities? If your newly hired leader doesn't have the right read on the current state of the business, they're going to draw the wrong conclusions about what to do next. And if they do that, then they'll mobilize their team and point them in the wrong direction. And if they do that, then that's costing you time, money, and opportunity. Number 2, the culture. Ask yourself this: does your new hire understand the current culture and any shifts required to improve performance? Are they influencing these shifts with all the levers available? If your new leader fails to grasp the culture, they're going to put the wrong incentives and systems in place. Number 3, the team. Once again, ask yourself this: does the new hire, do they have the right team with the right skills and attitude and the right structure? Are they putting a plan in place to transition to a high-performing team? When your new leader is stepping into an organization that's struggling to hit the targets, it's most often a result of having the wrong people in the seats, or having wrong seats in the first place, or both. See, a leader who can't make decisive moves in this regards will underperform. And finally, number 5, the individual. Finally, ask yourself this one last question: has your new leader done what it takes to get up to speed, to set boundaries, and consider the legacy that they want to leave? Are they spending their time wisely by assuming roles only they can play? One of the biggest risks to your new leader happens if they spend their critical early weeks and months focused on the wrong things. And I made a mistake. The individual is number 4. Here's the 5th one: other stakeholders. Ask yourself this one final question. Promise, this is number 5. Do they understand your new hire? Do they understand their mandate and the expectations of other stockholders? Has your new leader established a productive working rhythm and relationship to shape their views? They have to understand that they're not the only fish in the pond, so they're going to have to work well with their peers. And they'll have to put in the time and effort to build strong, trusting relationships. The hiring and onboarding of a new senior leader, whether through internal promotion or external hiring, shouldn't be taken lightly. Success is a result of proper planning and a bias to action. So, focusing on these 5 areas to maximize your potential for a successful transition will definitely help you out. All right? Great. Well, that's it for me. This has been another edition of The Intentional Leader. To find out more about me and what I do, please visit my website at www.chadbumgarner.co. You can also hit me on Twitter, as well as check out the video versions of these podcasts on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in to OurVoice 360. And remember, great leadership equals great results. How are you leading? Hi, are you tired of high turnover rates, constant confusion on the team, or maybe even low or mediocre productivity from your team? Well, the CDB Consulting Group has the experience and the business acumen to correct those issues and take you and your team to the next level. So contact us today. Go to www.chadbumgarner.co or call us at 678-571-2773. And remember, great leadership equals great results. How are you leading?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to OurVoice 360. Journalist and businessman Claude A. Barnett transformed his love for reading into a thriving news wire service for African Americans, which was the first of its kind. For nearly 5 decades, the Associated Negro Press informed and enlightened the African American public and beyond. Claude Albert Barnett was born September 15, 1889 in Sanford, Florida, and primarily raised in Chicago, Illinois area. He entered the Tuskegee Institute in 1904 as an engineering student and emerged with his diploma in just 2 years. Barnett returned to Chicago to work as a postman, and in 1913 began marketing images of prominent African Americans to black newspapers before turning it into a thriving mail order business in 1917. With the success of the business and his booming Cashmere Chemical Company, a cosmetics firm, Barnett bankrolled his appetite for the news into creating the Associated Negro Press. In its initial stages, the ANP pulled news headlines from other black papers of the day, but as it grew, Barnett was able to hire a staff of journalists from around the nation. At its heights in the early 50s, the ANP's article reached more than 200 papers nationwide and around the world. His wife, Etta Moulton Barnett, became the first black woman to sing inside of the White House in 1934. Into the 60s, the ANP remained a viable news resource in the black community, but Barnett suddenly died at the age of 70 in 1967, thus stopping operation of the ANP. In some circles, Barnett is considered the father of the Negro press. Once again, people, know yourself, know your worth. It's your man, M. Brown, OurVoice 360, and we out. Whether you go from state to state, coast to coast, there is no job too big, no project too small for Elect Graphics and Photography. If it's important to you, then it's important to us. Allow Elect Graphics and Photography to take care of all your graphic design, audio, and video needs. You can reach us at 828-855-3057. Thank you.
You're listening to the OurVoice 360 podcast, our perspectives from our way, keeping you in the know while you're on the go.
What's good, family, and welcome to the Sports Chronicles. I'm your host, Pete Hunt. Finally, Tiger Woods is back in the winner's circle after winning the last tournament of the year, the Tour Championship. But we all saw this coming. In 5 of his last 8 tournaments, Tiger finished in the top 10. In those top 10 finishes, the lowest he finished was a tie for 6th place. And the one thing that had plagued Tiger since his return, using driver off the tee, was vastly improved. Was it perfect? No, but Tiger drove the ball well enough to get this victory. His short game, scrambling, and putting were on full display this past week. He finally played at a high level for 4 days in a tournament. But what was even better was the gallery following Tiger up the 18th fairway. That was simply amazing. We all know Tiger's backstory and his issues, some self-inflicted and others because of his body just simply breaking down on him. I don't know if this is the greatest comeback in sports history, but it's right up there. Now on to the Ryder Cup for Tiger and his United States teammates. Again, congratulations, Tiger Woods, for being back in the winner's circle. Thank you for listening to the Sports Chronicles exclusively on OurVoice 360.
The FPC channel, hosted by yours truly, Ventress Chestnut Fountain, can be seen on any streaming device on your televisions. You can even watch from your phones on any social media platform. News, weather, and entertainment featuring some of today's biggest celebrity interviews. You don't want to miss out. You could also have your own TV show produced by Ventress Productions and Communications LLC to expand your brand or business and get your content seen. Call 828-261-6122 or visit thefpcchannel.com for more information.
It's me, your man Ivan Hunt, host of the Keep It Moving talk radio show, coming to you live from Miami, Florida, but we're streaming live now on Facebook via BLive.tv. So this is your first time listening to Keep It Moving. What is Keep It Moving all about? Keep It Moving is all about inspiring, motivating, encouraging, empowering people to give people a sense of ownership over their life again, so they can take back control of their life and start living a life that's full of purpose, passion, and meaning. So as I do every week, man, I like to start off with a little chit chat. So you may have heard in the past me talking about me, working on my book, and my book is almost done, and everything else like that. Well, dun, 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 the book is here. The book is here. The book is here. I did it. I finally wrote my first book and it's published. I'm super stoked about it. And, you can find it on Amazon. The name of the book is called Boot Camp for Personal Success. There's an ebook version, but the ebook is a lot smaller. But then there's the paperback, which is really a lot more in depth. And the book, man, is really, it's just that. It's a boot camp for personal success. There's very easy and practical tools that you can use. You can read the book. If you didn't do any of the exercises, you could probably read the book in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. It's very, very, very simple to read. But if you would actually work the book and really apply yourself and really work through the exercises, well, the book could take you a week then, 2 weeks to even really get your way all the way through and really gain the things out of it, that you really want. And I think it's really going to help you and move forward towards your personal success. So, that, as you know, man, that's really what I'm about. I'm about helping people achieve their ideal personal success. So somebody has asked me, well, Ivan, what's your ideal personal success? Or what's my definition of success? My definition of success is, obviously, I'd love to make $1 million and be a multi-millionaire. And if I happen to stumble upon being a multi-billionaire, well, fine, that's all the more glorious. But for me, really, personal success is being able to interact with people on a daily basis, to be able to inspire, motivate, and encourage and empower people, right? And also to coach people, to have the freedom to come and go as I please and not to be tied down to a particular desk or a particular 9 to 5. That's my definition of success. And to be able to spend quality time with my wife and my kids. And I'm able to do that. But in order for me to do that, I had to make a lot of hard decisions. So one of the things the book touches on is just that. It's about making decisions. And how do you make decisions? How do you determine what's really important to you? Because there's really no way you can achieve success as you define it if you're not very clear on what's important to you. So the book really focuses a lot. There's a section in the book that really focuses just on that, just on your values. What's really important to you, and to gain clarity around the things that matter, and to get you to even prioritize. So as you start setting goals and you start making a plan for your success, then every decision that you make has a foundation or a basis in which you can make that decision that better aligns to the things that are important to you. So also, don't forget that the Boot Camp for Personal Success, 2 1-hour webinars is coming up on September 17th and 24th. Go to ivanhunt.com to register. If you mention this show, and if you decide to purchase the advanced training package, type in advanced, and you'll get an additional percentage off, 10% off. Hey, what can you ask for? I talked yesterday, and I'm debating if I'm going to bring this subject up to my guest today. And the reason why I'm debating it is, one, he doesn't know I'm going to bring this topic up. So I don't want to completely lambast him. But he's a veteran also, and so I know he and I therefore have a commonality. We share a bond because we both have served, and that's a bond that will always last. They call it brother in arms, and you really do become. It really is a brotherhood because less than 6% or less than 7% of our country has ever served in the military. To me, that's just an amazing number. Here we are in a country that has 300 or 400 million people, but yet still, we cry about our freedoms, we cry about our liberties, we want our freedoms, but yet still less than 6% of our population has ever donned a uniform. Think about that. The wealthy 1% controls the vast majority of the finances, yet still less than 6% of our country, has actually served our country. And so I talked yesterday a little bit about Nike's decision to support Colin Kaepernick. And I stated my views on it, and I stated why I felt the way that I felt. So maybe I'll bring that topic up later on, and we can just have an open dialogue, with Casey about it today. So I want to jump right into the interview. And maybe if you watched the show a couple of weeks ago, I had Casey on the show, but we had a lot of technical difficulties. So out of the goodness of his heart, he forgave me and came back on the show. And I'm really appreciative that, he's giving the show a second chance. And because I really think he has something important and an important message and can really add value to your life and really help you move forward financially, because all of us want some type of financial freedom. We want to be able to do and buy the things that we want to buy. We want to know that for those rainy days that we have this nest egg or that we have some type of cushion. But it's also about, having financial freedom is also learning how to make money while you sleep. And so sometimes that may be investing, sometimes that may be investing in stocks or real estate, or maybe you have a product that you sell, and that sells while you're sleeping. So part of gaining or getting ahead financially is just that, is creating revenue streams and then also making money while you sleep. So my guest this week is Casey Stubbs. He's a U.S. Army veteran. He's a lifelong entrepreneur dedicated to helping investors from all walks of life achieve financial freedom and abundance in their lives. And so with that being said, I want to jump right into this interview because we got cut way short last time. And I really think he has a lot of good information that can help entrepreneurs, but it can also help those who are seeking to, grow their wealth and gain that financial freedom, or to get away from their 9-to-5 or their hourly paid job. So without further ado, Casey, welcome to the show and welcome back to Keep It Moving.
Hey, Ivan, thanks for having me back, and I'm really glad to be back.
Good. So the last time we talked, I'm gonna jump right into this because I really want to get into, your desire to helping investors of all walks of life achieve financial freedom and abundance in their lives. So with me reading that statement again, what exactly does that mean to you?
It means help people make smart financial decisions, to really think about their money before they buy anything or before they go into debt, to really have a plan. I think the most important thing that everybody needs is a plan. And to be honest, a lot of people are just kind of living, paycheck to paycheck, which is not a good situation to be in. But the reason that they're that way is because they don't have a plan. And, I think now times can be difficult because the wages are lower and inflation's gone up, and you can't buy as much as you used to with your dollar, right? It's just, you go to the grocery store. Like I personally go to the grocery store, and it's literally insane how much stuff costs. I've got 9 kids, so like I go to the grocery store and it's like, what? It's a lot of money. So
you have how many kids?
I have 9 kids. Yeah.
9?
Yep. From my oldest are 19 and 5 is the youngest.
And are they do you have twins or triplets?
I have twins, and then I've adopted 2.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh
so I got to be really smart with my money because of that, because just like the grocery bill's outrageous. But so you have to make a plan. And I think what a lot of people think is, well, I don't have enough money and it doesn't go far enough. And that is true. But if you plan for it and you come up with strategies to create extra sources of revenue and you don't get into debt, and rather than the debt taking away from your money and inflation taking your money, you create extra streams of revenue, and then you're adding to your pile rather than getting it subtracted. And just having a basic budget and really being smart with your money will go a long way.
So I obviously I can see why financial planning is very important to you. With a family of 11, that's not an easy, that's not an easy task just from a parenting perspective. I won't even touch on parenting, but
yeah,
but just the financial planning part of it, I can see where it's very critical for you. How did you grasp the tools for financial planning?
Well, they don't really teach it much in school. It's crazy because they teach you all these facts about, sometimes kind of random things, and you just got to memorize them, but they don't teach you how to make smart decisions, how to think critically, or how to manage your money properly. And a lot of people don't even know the basics when they get out of high school, which I really didn't know. And unfortunately, parents aren't teaching because they don't know either. And so I was really fortunate because when I was a pretty young man, through my church, they were hosting a financial course called Financial Peace, and it's written by a guy named Dave Ramsey. And he teaches you about how to budget and how to plan financially and how to manage your money. And it really helped me out as a young person taking that course.
But what did you learn exactly about financial planning? And I've heard of Dave Ramsey as well. But what did you learn? That you were able to implement it and be obviously successful at it so far.
Well, the biggest thing is to actually, at the beginning of the month, you don't always know how much money you're going to make, but if you have a steady job, pretty much. Like when you're a business person, it can go up and down, so you don't really know. But the most important thing is to look at your expenses and to basically have everything spent before you actually get the money, rather than, okay, I got this much money, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to buy that, and you just spend everything you have. You basically put everything into categories and you spend it ahead of time. They call it a zero-based budget. So you put all of your money to work and you know exactly what your money's going to do for that month. Now, if you have extra or something comes in that you weren't planning on, well, then you can use that extra for an additional investment or paying something that you need to pay. But the really important thing is to know what you're spending ahead of time. That way you don't have any surprises. Another really, really important thing is to have a little bit of savings. I'm not a big fan of huge savings because of inflation, because your money sits there and it just shrinks. Over time, you're getting robbed and you don't even know it. But I do think that you should have a little bit of money on hand. And this was something I was taught in the course, so that you can be ready for emergencies. So when your car breaks down, you've got a little bit of money to cover that. When your refrigerator breaks, you got money to cover that, so that you're not having to rack up credit cards and get yourself into a big hole, which you can't get out of. If you've ever been in a situation where you have a massive credit card and you're paying hundreds of dollars a month in interest, that's a bad place to be, and it's really hard to get out of that.
So, but most people are taught to save, right? And I hate banks. So let's just get this. When I tell you, man, if there's a pet peeve of mine, that is banks. I hate banks. I hate banks. I hate banks. I hate banks.
Well, if you want to talk about hating banks, me and you are really on the same page there. I can't stand banks. They're very immoral. They steal your money all the time. They treat you like total garbage. Yes. And they're just terrible. As a matter of fact, there was a guy, a famous blogger the other day, who was saving up for his house. He had $300,000 in his bank, and he was posting online that Bank of America had frozen his account. And it was $300,000. They didn't even tell him why. He couldn't get in contact with them. And I thought that was crazy. I sent him a message on Twitter. I don't know who he was, but I sent him a message on Twitter. I said, if you had your money in Bitcoin, then you wouldn't have to worry about that.
That's true. That's very true. I think, mine, I get a new debit card. I bet you every 3 to 6 months. It never fails. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she hardly ever does. But I know a lot of it has to do, I believe I've got on their radar. When I say they, probably the government, because of some of my views and some of my opinions.
Yeah.
I'm not scared to say it, right? And I think, and I'm not on there enough for them to really come after me, but just enough to make them, want to make my life a little uncomfortable and miserable. So I really believe that. But growing up, I remember I was part of this thing called the Squirrels Club, and it was part of one of the local government credit unions, one of the local credit unions. And, we actually earned interest, believe it or not, in our savings account. So if you're taught to save and put your money in the bank and you don't know any other way, right? What do you advise clients then on what they should do with their savings?
Well, so just to be clear, because when you said clients, I'm not really a financial advisor. I'm a businessman, and I teach financial education on the side of trading, like how to trade stocks and things like that. So I don't really have any financial clients. But to answer your question, with savings, it does eat your money away. And back in the day, there was interest. And I think the inflation has probably picked up a little bit. So it was probably more valuable then. But on the bank side of things, I say as soon as you get money, you need to find a place to put it that will generate some revenue, whether you're going to invest in a business. You don't necessarily have to run the business if you don't want to. You could find a business to invest in. That's what stocks are, right? So if you find a company that you like, you buy shares, which gives you a percentage of ownership in that company. And so everybody has products that they like and companies that they think are growing and that are strong, and you can do some research. You can then own a piece of that company, and as they make money, then their share price goes up and you make money. So you're investing in a company. Another way to save some money is to do real estate. You put some money into some real estate. You don't necessarily have to buy and own rentals. There's real estate funds that you can sign up for. There's index funds and other things like that. Or you could actually buy houses and get rents, or buy them up and fix them up. There's a lot of different things you can do like that. And then another thing that I just mentioned earlier is Bitcoin. Currencies, the cryptocurrencies, I think have a lot of potential. I think if you wanted to put a percentage of money in there and hold them for growth in the future, I think that might be a good idea. Or take your money and start your own business and work on the side and just start some extra sources of revenue. But I don't recommend anybody leave any money sit in the bank. I have very little. I have just enough for my expenses for that month in the bank. And I'm even trying to get away from that. Really?
Now, when you say, that Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is an option and that, you can purchase and hold, what is your definition of hold? Because there's different variations of, so if I'm a new investor and I'm someone who works 9 to 5 and, let's say I make $12, $13, $14 an hour, to invest, one, is scary to begin with, but to hold it, what does that mean to hold?
Okay, so it's really not super, it's a little complicated, but I'll try to break it down simple, because that's me. I'm a simple guy. So let's say that you're traveling on a vacation and you're going to Europe. You'll take your dollars and you'll turn them into euros, right? So there's a conversion rate. I don't know what the rate is right now, like 1.16 or something like that. So you give $1 and it costs $1.16 because theirs is worth a little bit more than ours. So there's a transaction there. And that's the same thing with Bitcoin. All you're doing is you're converting your money from dollars into Bitcoin. It's the exact same concept. And now, so with the idea of believing that the value of Bitcoin is going to increase versus the value of the dollar. So if we know they're printing a lot of dollars, which we know they're doing, right? That's what the Federal Reserve does. They're printing a lot of money. So that's what causes inflation, what causes the value of the dollar to go down. Bitcoin they're not creating, there's only a limited amount that they've been able to create. And so there's a limited value. So that's why I believe that it's going to go up, is because it's limited. And so you transfer your dollars over into Bitcoin. Now, the cool thing about it is when I talked about the banks earlier, how the money got taken, they froze his account. When you own Bitcoin, it's actually stored into a code. You get like a 20-digit code. It's got different characters. And that code is unique to you, and it says exactly how much Bitcoin you have in that code. And it's not in a bank. It's not anywhere. It's stored, people store it in a lot of different ways. You can store it on like a USB drive, like a little thumb drive. And so the only way to spend that money or to transfer that Bitcoin back into dollars is if you have access to the code, which is on that USB drive. So no bank can take it, no government can take it, no one can take it except for whoever has access of that USB drive.
So when did you get into Bitcoin?
I started a while ago, probably around 2013. It's been around. I wouldn't consider myself an expert in it, but I'm definitely an enthusiast, meaning I believe in it, and I think that it's going to do well in the future. I just interviewed a guy on my podcast who was talking about some of the benefits. If you've ever traveled out of the country and they give you these custom forms and they tell you, this is what my guest told me, they say you can only travel with $10,000 and you have to declare it. And then if you have over $10,000, they're like interrogating you. Well, with Bitcoin, you can actually memorize a code in your head that could be worth up to $1 billion, and you wouldn't have to declare it because it's all right here in your mind and no one could have access to it because the code for containing that money is right in your mind. And so I just think the fact that there's a limited amount of it, I think the fact that you can transfer it really easy person to person, you don't have to worry about setting up and filling out all these forms with a bank. You just worry about the code. I think the fact that it's private, that it's secure, there's just so many benefits, that it's limited. That makes me a big believer in it. And I think it really is a good thing for the future.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately for me, I kind of got into Bitcoin a little late. I got in on that big upward swing after the million something return. And I know that was an exaggeration.
Right. Well, it's close. It had a massive move. It was really huge.
Correct. And actually, I think I looked at it maybe a day or so ago, still around 6,600 something, give or take. And but I still believe in it as well. I pulled out of it just for other reasons, but I still believe in it too. And I love the concept of what you're saying, that it's coded, it's encrypted, and it's much more individualized, meaning person to person, that we can have a transaction without having a third party really involved. Limited fees, and I believe in it also. I don't think it's going anywhere. What really caught your attention about Bitcoin? And I didn't know this conversation was going towards Bitcoin, but I could see your enthusiasm about it. But what was it that really caught your attention and made you go down that route?
I think the biggest thing was just the ease of use, because as a business owner, the banks give you a lot of trouble. Merchant accounts and trying to work with PayPal, getting your account frozen, trying to work with the compliance issues. And so just the ease of use was the big thing, and the privacy and the security, and not having to be worried about getting hacked. I mean, Experian got hacked not too long ago, a couple of years ago, the biggest credit agency in the world, and everybody's data was leaked to the whole world. So things like that, I just don't have a lot of faith in these systems anymore. And I think that this is new technology, and it's the beginning of something very new, just like the internet. When the internet first started, it was something new, and the people that jump onto new trends, if it's a real trend, usually are the ones that do well. And so I'm trying to stay current and to be flexible and not unchanging in my ways, so that when new things come, I'm open to it.
Right. And that's, but that takes a lot of confidence and discipline. And how did you learn that type of discipline and awareness? Because like you mentioned, schools don't teach financial literacy. I think that's one of the great, I think it's a huge disservice. It is a disservice. It's not surprising, right? Because they really don't want us to be financially literate. They want us to stay within the matrix.
They're teach. Yeah, I can see we think alike. They teach you what they want to teach you because they want you to be in a certain system. Right. But see, here's the thing. I'm not a big believer in relying on schools anyways. I think that parents really should be the ones that are responsible for teaching their children. And so if you're a parent and you're relying on the school, I get it. We're all busy. I'm a busy guy too. But these kids are your responsibility. They're not the state's responsibility. They're yours. So, God gave them to you to take care of. They're your responsibility. And so parents should do their homework and learn this stuff so they can teach their children. And I actually forgot what the question was. I went off on a bunny trail.
but that's fine, because, I agree with you. I think in order to make capitalism work, right, you have to continue to produce people who stay in the matrix. And staying in, in order for the rich to continue to get rich, right? You need, so you got the 1% who owns just about everything. You got 6% who defend everything that the 1% own. Well, you need the other 98% or 92 or 93% to make it all work together. And that's what, to me, that's what education does.
I actually just remembered your question. You were asking about discipline. And
Right.
So the answer to that is, I think I have a special trait, and I don't know if everybody has this, but there's two things that are really important. Number one is desire. And I don't know where that desire came from, but in me, it's strong. Like I'm always working. And it's just like this passion flame that burns inside of me that I just have to keep going. And so that's probably the big thing, hustle and desire. And then the second thing is, staying the course through adversity. I think that most people can't handle the valleys, and the valleys is where they quit rather than digging in and really. I think the people are built, their character is built in the valley. Your integrity is built in the valley. Your strength is built in the valley. And when nobody goes life on a straight upward path, it's all ups and downs. And the ones that really do well, and where my discipline has come, is through persevering in the difficult tasks.
And what do you credit that perseverance to?
Well, I do a lot of reading and studying, and I also have to give credit to my upbringing. I think that whether we have a good upbringing or bad, it shapes our lives. If we have a bad upbringing, a lot of times that gives people the strength to say, well, I don't want to live like this. I'm going to change. I'm going to change it for my generation. I'm going to do this, so they work really hard and they come from nothing, and their tough times really help shape them. In my situation, I came from a really great family. My dad is an extremely hard worker, hard work ethic. My mom's very caring, and, good example on my grandparents' side. And so I'm very thankful. When I was young, I didn't really get it, but being grateful for what I have and what I've received, I'm just building upon a foundation that I didn't really have anything to do with. So I just received a lot in my life, and I'm really thankful for that.
And how much did the military help you then, with your discipline, your ability to continue to, persevere in the valleys?
Well, to be honest, the military was wonderful. I loved it, but it didn't really help me with that because I was kind of a bad boy in the Army. And I would just get in trouble a lot, and I was always pushing the limit. I was a great worker, like I was a forward observer, and I worked in the motor pool. And I mean, when I got a mission, I was on the mission. I did everything I could, but I always pushed the limits. And maybe that's my entrepreneurial side, but I always pushed the limits with getting in trouble. And so I ended up getting out as an E5, but I got demoted a couple times, and it took me a while to get to that point.
It's funny that you say that. Where was it? I even put something in my book. I talk about my experience in the military, right? And one of the things I said, unbeknownst to me at the time, I never played by the rules. I always felt I was the exception to the rule, or I simply created my own rule that has worked both for me and against me. I've been called a renegade on more than one occasion, and that was the thing about me in the military. I was always getting in trouble. I was always pushing the envelope. I always thought I was the exception to the rule and that they didn't necessarily apply to me. And yes, I was demoted several times too. And a lot of it was just out of pure defiance, just because I said, you know what, I'm gonna do what I want to do because hell, I'm me. Why not?
Yeah, I always used to say, you can get brainwashed by their stuff, but you're not brainwashing me.
Yeah. And but I also learned something else too, along the same lines that really helped me. There's a difference between doing the right thing and selling out.
Yeah, well, doing the right thing is really important. But the question is, how do you define what is right and what is wrong? Because society's definition of what's right is not what's right.
Correct. Well, I agree. So how do you define then what is right or wrong for you?
Well, for me I say that God is the creator of all things, and God is the one who defines what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong. So that's pretty simple for me. If God says it's good, it's good. If he says it's bad, it's bad.
And that goes back to your philosophy towards life on keeping things simple.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, congratulations on the book. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
It's live now. It's been.
Yes. It's you can find it on Amazon. You could thank you for the plug. I appreciate that.
Well, that's a big accomplishment. Not too many people do that, so that's great.
And actually, I stumbled into the book. It's something I've always wanted to write a book, but what I was really trying to do was create a program for veterans, a 6-week program for veterans around making better decisions. Because much like you alluded to, there is a lot of brainwashing, and people miss this concept that when you go to boot camp, you're going to be trained how to kill somebody. You are being desensitized on killing somebody. That is not a normal,
Right.
training.
Yeah.
That's people miss that is the ultimate intention of going to boot camp. That's it. That's what it means to be a soldier, to have the ability to kill somebody with no emotion attached to it. That's the goal of the military.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And so when I know a lot of guys who, once they've gotten out, man, they've struggled. I don't think I know of one person that is still married to the spouse that they were with when they got out.
Yeah.
Not one. And so it really got me to thinking, like, what is really going on with these guys? And the thing that I learned is, they struggle to get reacclimated, because they don't understand all the things that's really happened to them. And so when they get out, there's just a stoic, non-emotional figure, and they have a hard time relating to the rest of the world. So the book was really built around that concept of trying to help us, us brothers in arms, to get reacclimated and start making better decisions.
That's really good. I actually never even really thought of it that way before. So that's pretty good. And so when they get out, when we get out, we might be used to following orders. We might be used to, being in the system and just kind of doing whatever it is we're being told. And so then thinking for yourself can be difficult. And when you've got to make all these decisions, the Army takes care of you almost like you're one of their kids, because they pay for your food, they pay for your housing, they give you everything you need. And so when you go out and now all of a sudden you have to provide for yourself with all of those things, it can be quite a challenge.
Yeah. And I even remember hearing the older guys saying, okay, but man, when you get out, you're not going to be able to afford anything, because we're paying for your housing. The only bills that you really have when you're in the military, if you're just strictly, lower enlisted, and you could literally live off of the military and not accumulate one bill.
That's right. Yeah. And, it's funny though, when you talk about saving. So when I was in, I was in for 4 years, and then I went from there into the reserves. But when I was in the first time, I had just about $25,000 in the bank saved up from a 4-year period, because I was on 2 deployments. I was over in Germany, got deployed to Bosnia and to Kosovo. During that time, it's tax-free. You get extra pay, combat pay, and some other bonuses. And so I was able to really rack up my money. But what was interesting was almost every single other person around me was broke, right? They were living from paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
And we were getting paid the exact same amount. They were my roommates and the guys that were living right next to me, and I could never understand it. But then I would look at their lifestyle, and I did most of the crazy stuff they did, but I just would set a limit, right? I'd say, okay, I'm going to go do crazy stuff with this much money. I'm going to spend $150 on crazy stuff. The rest I'm going to put away. Right. They'd spend it all on crazy stuff. And, you'd see them with TVs and VCRs and all the new DVDs, and they'd go buy food. They'd load up their room with food when they knew that they were getting free food from the chow hall. But me, I was storing MREs in my room,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was sleeping with the military cotton blankets, the wool blankets, and the guys were feeling sorry for me, and they'd bring me a comforter because they felt bad that I didn't go out and buy myself some new blankets.
But I was in the military with a guy like that, and and he had a boatload of money saved up. But when he got out. He was, and to this day he travels the world. So I think it was just something that he just had a trait that was installed in him very early, or just intrinsically, that he understood how to save money, and he understood financial discipline. And again, the vast majority of people do not understand financial discipline. So if you don't know financial discipline, how do you teach financial discipline? How do you ingrain that into people?
For me, the biggest thing is to have a vision for what I want to accomplish and to live the life that I want to live. So I want to do something with my money. And it's funny, I was a great saver, but then a lot changed when I got married. And that's a whole nother topic. Like I hated spending money, yet my wife loves it. So right there, we have two totally composing viewpoints, and it took several years before we finally got on the same page with that.
Right. I've had to relearn financial discipline. Originally I'm from North Carolina. I moved down to Miami, got a divorce, found myself more or less homeless. I was sleeping in my car, sleeping before my job, and I had to start all over. So I became very I was proud of the fact that I was financially independent. I was proud of the fact that I had savings, investments, etc. Got married, continued to progress in my corporate career, and I started to take the dollar for granted. And then when I became an entrepreneur and resigned, I've had to go back to the basics and really appreciate, finances again. So what are some of the things that you offer in when teaching clients about investing? How do you evaluate a company, or how do you know what shares to buy?
When you're looking at stocks, the biggest thing to look at is earnings growth. So you want to look and see how fast the revenue is growing. So the greatest thing about business, and this is why I like owning a business myself, is that when you have a paycheck, you get paid X, and you might get a raise once a year or twice a year, whatever. When you have a business, if you run it the right way, you can make more money every month. Every month you're increasing your revenues. And the good companies, you'll look at their statements and you'll see that their earnings growth is going up every single month. And some of these companies have done it for 50 to 100 years, where they've not stopped growing their revenues over that period of time. And so it doesn't necessarily, there's two things: the rate of growth you want to look at, and just that it's consistent with growing. And then when you see a new company come out, that's where the really big ones happen, where they launch out quick and they make a lot of money fast. That's the ones that you really want to look at, like the recent Facebooks, the recent Googles, the recent Amazons, the recent Netflix. Things like that have really done well. And if you just pick a few good ones like that, you'll get a really good return on your investment.
And is there a particular threshold that you look at then for earnings growth, or rate of growth for a particular company? And then how can an individual even find what a company's growth rate is?
The way that the best way for me to find the growth rate is just to go to Yahoo Finance online and then just type in their company name in the search, and it has all of that information in there. It has data about the company. It has all their earnings statements. It has projections from other analysts. And so you just kind of look at all of that stuff. And as far as a specific ratio, I actually don't have one. I just do a lot of reading and research. I know there's a lot of ratios out there, like earnings to growth ratios and things like that, like from experts like Warren Buffett, and things that you can find if you do your research on a stock.
And so you kind of gave me a great segue, into Nike. So Nike took a hit yesterday. What do you think their future growth is like?
Well, Nike is one of those companies that was one of the good stocks that I mentioned, right? So if you would have put your money into Nike a while ago, back in the 80s, you'd be doing extremely well today. And they've always had good growth. Now, recently, they've come under a lot of competition with Under Armour. Under Armour just came up right out. So that's another one that you could have invested in that launched. Under Armour came up out of nowhere, and they are serious competitors right now with Nike. Maybe even they might have even taken them as the top spot in the athletic apparel company. I haven't actually researched them. But as far as their earnings growth, I think this is probably a good opportunity to buy, depending upon what the market is, because if they are consistent with growing their revenues, then a news statement like this, the company makes a bad decision or they make some bad press, then that usually is a buying opportunity. So I look for that all the time. If you look for companies that you know that are going to do great, like Amazon, and they do something dumb and the stock drops huge in a day, then that means you want to buy it.
And define huge, because people say, when the average listener hears that, I'll just use Nike again, that their shares drop 3.9% or 3%, they just hear 3%, and that doesn't sound like a lot. So you follow where I'm going with that?
I totally. I was just peeking over at my monitor at the Nike numbers because I got my second screen up. So I would say a big drop is 20%, where you could really get some good savings. But sometimes even a small 4 or 5% drop is a good chance to get into it. Like I was just looking at Nike. You can look at their revenue for the last 4 years right here on Yahoo Finance. So in 2015, they made $30 billion.
Mm-hmm.
In 2016, they made $32 billion. In 2017, they made $34 billion. And in 2018, they made $36 billion. So they have gross revenue.
Okay.
So over the course of the last 6 years or 4 years that I was looking at there, they've gone up every year. And so if we go back in their history, these guys know how to make money. They know how to cut expenses. They know how to run a business. So they enter into new markets. These guys know how to do it. It's probably a great investment whenever they go down.
And I'm not trying to get technical here with you, but when you say, so their gross revenue is increasing year over year over year, but that doesn't necessarily equate to a profit year over year over year, or profit growth, or growth in profit year over year either.
No, that's true. And in the stock market, it can be a little tricky because sometimes they don't really even care about profit. They just care about growth because they figure, if there's a lot of hype around it, they're really just excited that they're making more money. Like, for example, Netflix, right? Netflix hasn't made a profit yet their stock is trading at like insane levels. And I don't know, I say insane because I don't know exactly, but it's really high. Right. And it just keeps going up. And the reason is because their revenue keeps going up, but then they just take on more debt to expand the business faster. And so they're like, well, we're just taking on more debt. We're not making a profit yet, but we're growing our revenues. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And it maybe someday we'll level off our debt expenses. And the investors don't care because their revenue is growing. So, but Nike is not one of those companies. Nike's growing their net and they're also growing their gross revenues.
Okay. And I love the way you've answered, the Nike question, because you could have gone in multiple directions with it. And I did kind of dangle it out there like a carrot just to see.
Well, I actually can't comment on like why it went down. I heard a little bit about it, but I didn't really read anything, so I don't know exactly what's going on.
Well, I'll and again, we don't have to go down this route, but the main reason why Nike went down was because they decided to make Colin Kaepernick the face of their next Just Do It ad. And of course, there's been a lot of current controversy around Colin Kaepernick, the kneeling of the anthem, and the flag, etc. And so there was a lot of backlash because of that. And so they took a beating yesterday as a result of it. So that's really the reason why that took place.
As far as a business decision, it's probably a good business decision, even though I obviously am not in favor of it for a couple reasons. One is I thought they were supposed to promote like athletes that were really outstanding, but this is basically a political move, right? And so I look at Nike as being an athletic company, not a political company. And that's kind of changed in recent years. It seems like everything's all about politics now. When, business used to be about business and sports used to be about sports, but now business is about politics and sports is about politics. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy to me. It doesn't make a lot of sense why they would do that, because you would try, to me, it makes sense to find the best athletes and promote them based on their skill rather than political stuff.
The one thing about Nike though, Nike's always been a little progressive. Even back to the days of, when they first signed Michael Jordan, and, his first shoe was banned by the NBA because of the color combination. If you go back and look at their support of Andre Agassi, and with the mullet haircut and
right,
everything else like that, and the aggressive apparel styling and the shoe styling, they've always been cutting edge almost in that sense, to push the envelope, to kind of shatter, because tennis outside of golf, tennis is about the most, coded, I don't know the word to use, where it's just very nondescript,
right,
to draw attention to yourself, just to your skill. But then
right,
Andre Agassi with these flamboyant colors and so forth, and now that's progressed to being Serena Williams and so forth. So I think Nike's been very progressive in that sense and not scared to rock the boat. I have my own opinions why they're not scared to rock the boat, because they know people are going to buy. At the end of the day, the emotion is going to pass.
Right, and they also got to look at their demographic and the younger people. The young people are the ones that are buying this stuff, and the young people are the ones that are going to have their same viewpoints.
Right, and that's true. And I actually heard somebody else comment along those lines similar. I want to touch on one other thing real quick. When you say financial freedom and abundance in their lives, define abundance for you.
Abundance
with 9 kids.
Abundance for me is being able to spend time doing what I want to do, right? Spending time doing the thing that I like the most, and the most. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to do what I want all the time, but have a good percentage of the time being able to do that. And so when I became a business owner, which was getting close to 10 years, it'll be my 10-year anniversary in January. I actually consider that like the day that I retired, because to me, it doesn't feel like work. I'm doing what I like to do and what I want to do. And so it's great. I can work whenever I want. And the internet is so wonderful because you can work from wherever. Like I could be doing this interview anywhere as long as I have a webcam and an internet connection. Like I just took a full 1 month vacation with my family. I've got 9 kids. So my wife and myself and all 9 of our kids were from Pennsylvania, but my family is from Oregon. That's where I grew up. So we drive in a 12-passenger van all the way across the country. It took an entire month to do the whole round trip. We were in 13 states. So we don't live like luxury, but we have enough to have fun and to be able to do that. Not too many people I know get to take a 1 month vacation and just do whatever they want. So I'm like totally blessed by that, and I really love doing it.
And if you don't mind me asking, you mentioned that you had 2 kids that you adopted. What led to that? And the reason why I'm asking is, my oldest, we're a blended family. So my wife and I are a blended family. She had a 27-year-old when I met her, he's 27 now, but she and I have a daughter together, and I had 2 boys from my first marriage. And actually, the oldest of the 2, I adopted him from the first marriage. So I understand, but what led to that? What compelled you to go in that direction?
Well, I'm also a blended family. My wife had her 2 girls before we were married, and I did adopt them as well, just like you did. And but then we adopted 2 additional ones as well. And so it's a great story. I'm really glad you asked, because I love talking about it. So we're from Pennsylvania, and we live in a small town, or used to live in a small town called Latrobe. And my wife would babysit for one of our neighbors. And the neighbor was taking care of a little girl for her sister. So the little girl's aunt was taking care of her. Her sister was a heroin addict and in and out of jail and couldn't watch the child. Well, her sister that was watching her just couldn't take it anymore. And my wife would babysit for her. And so she ended up saying, hey, just wanted to let you know you're not going to have to babysit anymore, because I'm turning this kid into the state, because I just can't watch her anymore. It's just too much for me. And so my wife was like, immediately told me, she's like, we need to try to get and adopt this girl, right? So I said, okay, if you want to, let's do it. So she showed up at the courthouse the day that the sister was handing the child over to the state. And we said, well, we babysit. And they said, oh, well, they have special things for that called a kinship situation. And so they went to all the family. There was no family that would take them. And so we ended up getting her, and it was through a foster program for about a year. And then we just went through the system until we were able to adopt them. And what was interesting was that, so there was 2, her sister wasn't born yet. The mother was pregnant later, which we didn't know about. And the state called us and said, hey, the mother's pregnant again, but she can't keep the baby. The baby's addicted to heroin. Do you guys want to take this baby also? So obviously we're going to say yes. So she was actually born addicted. She had to go through a detox for a month. And so that's a really tough way to start your life out. Like, they put you in isolation. So you're this baby. Babies need comfort, and they need their moms, and they need closeness, right? And so she's like isolated for the first month of her life, going through withdrawals. It's really a tough scenario to be born into. But then after that, she came straight from the hospital to us.
Wow. I powerful story, man. And I commend you for all your accomplishments on the business side, but it sounds that you're a hell of a family man, and a husband and a father. And if there's, to me, that resonates with me. So my respect for you, it just went through the roof just for that. And I commend you for doing what you've done for your family. And I commend you for the man that you are. And, continue to be a beacon of light for those around you that need you and that you support, but continue to be a beacon of light for everybody else too.
Well, thanks, Ivan. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And, I wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for the person that God made me to be. So he gets all the credit.
I understand. We're wrapping up. I'm going to wrap up the show, man. But, I've had a great conversation with you, and I'm glad that, I'm glad you get, like I said, I'm glad you gave it a second chance. I've really learned a lot about you, and I think you're an amazing man. And I love what you're doing. I love your passion. I love your disdain too about banks. We definitely can agree on that. We can agree on the school system. This week's show of Keep It Moving. My guest was Casey Stubbs, and if you missed the show, man, you really missed a great, powerful show. We talked a lot about finances. We talked about investing, but we also talked about our disdain for banks. We don't like banks, and there's a reason why we don't like banks. But we also touched on a personal story about his kids, and how some of his family members became part of his family. And he's a great guy, and so I definitely recommend you listening to the show. Hey, this is Ivan Hunt. I'm the host of Keep It Moving, coming live from Miami, Florida. Until next week, peace.
Well, folks, that's it for this week. I'm your host, Chad Bumgarner. I want to give a shout out to my OurVoice 360 team, Mike Brown, Pete Hunt, Ventress Fountain, and Ivan Hunt. As always, thanks for tuning in to OurVoice 360, our perspectives, our way, keeping you in the know while you're on the go. See you next week.